Board meeting in the town of Peterborough, 5 p.m., May 3rd, 2022. Untitled Ward, fellow Select Board member Bill Kennedy and Bill Taylor at the table with me. I have Town Administrator McStay to my left and Assistant to the Town Administrator Allie Kreutz with us. In the audience is Tim Hurley, our Building Code Enforcement Officer. Chief Walker's also here from Fire and Rescue. Tonight's agenda, Tim's going to read us a nice long proclamation that we may or may not accept, vote to accept tonight, honoring the work that he does and other safety officials around the state, and I guess the country, right?
Yes.
We'll discuss the 2022 social services funding requests, get an update from Chief Walker on the fire and ambulance facility design and design funding, also Nicole, I think. And then we'll more than likely go to appoint Bob Strong to the Conservation Commission under high recommendation. We'll also get some discussion going about the new exciting EV charging stations that are opening up in the Riverwalk parking lot. And then we had minutes from April 15th that Bill and Bill will have to vote on. We are streaming live on Ustream on our access via our website and also Comcast Channel 22. So if anybody would like to make a comment or have a question, please raise your hand. We'll gladly love to hear from you. Just state your name. Thanks. You're all. All right, up first. Tim, what do you think?
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for the time.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I don't know if you all know, Tim was recently awarded the Building Code Enforcement Officer of the Year through the New Hampshire
That's right.
Department of, you have to.
New Hampshire
Hampshire
Buildings.
Building Officials Association.
Building Officials Association. Yeah.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Woo.
Nice, yeah.
An actual medallion for your
Yep.
desk, right?
Yep, a little plaque.
Go down there and
Nice.
It's like a Grammy.
he cuddles it a lot.
Similar. That's mine.
But you're not dressed like you're at the Met Gala.
No, I dressed up a little bit more.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
International Code Council is an organization, international. They develop the codes that we use to protect our homes and businesses. They every year promote Building Safety Month for the month of May. And so what I'm asking the town of Peterborough, along with the state of New Hampshire through the Building Officials Association, is to proclaim that locally here in the town of Peterborough, the support for Building Safety Month. And so I'll read this for you. Whereas our town is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role of our homes, buildings, and infrastructures play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, electricians, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our communities, largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials who assure us a safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas, quote-unquote, safety for all, building codes in action, the theme for Building Safety Month 2022, encourages us all to raise awareness about planning for safe and sustainable construction, career opportunities in building safety, understanding disaster mitigation, energy conservation, and creating a safe and abundant water supply to all of our benefit. And whereas each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, People all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to us all by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, you, the selectmen, would complete the bottom. The selectmen for the town of Peterborough, New Hampshire, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join us as we participate in Building Safety Month activities.
Well, thank you for reading that. I appreciate it. You saved me from reading it.
Sure.
I'd vote for it just for that. But, so, may I ask, will next May, well, are we making May the official month to recognize your profession?
Yes, and so typically the proclamation is made every year, unless they choose a different month for some reason, but I would be asking you again next year.
All right. Any questions?
I'd like to acknowledge the role of our fire department in that safety program as well.
Sure.
Safety inspections and that sort of thing.
Excellent.
So they should share the honor.
Duly noted. Chief, acting so humble over there.
Keep it
Anyone
on.
from the audience like to add anything or ask any questions?
What are the other screens?
Sorry?
What, if you scroll down to page 3 and 4, I just didn't know what.
Just signatures.
Oh, that's just more of the packet, we'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'd make a motion that we, the Select Board of the Town of Peterborough, New Hampshire, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Building Safety Month. Do I have a
Second.
Second, great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.
Cool.
Next up, this is, we usually, each year we discuss this, and it looks like the numbers are pretty similar to last year, a little more, but.
Actually, we have a correction we need to make to this memo. The Human Services budget includes $20,000 to support of social service agencies. You may or may not recall that last year we reduced that amount in an effort to level fund the budget. So it's $20,000 that's in the budget as opposed to 30. Generally speaking, that's not an issue. You know, we have regularly overrun this budget when we've been able to, if direct aid comes in below budget. Direct aid is coming in below budget this year, but with our efforts to try to return as much money from our operating budget to the fund balance this year, for obvious reasons, we really looking to you to give us direction on how we approach these requests. Would you like to choose some of them? Home health care community hospice is actually $10,000 this year. The $15,000 request is for next year's budget. But we get billed by them monthly at the $10,000 level, and that's been moving along. CVTC, Monadnock Family Services, St. Joseph's, Meals on Wheels, Monadnock Center for Prevention of Violence, the Children's Advocacy Center, and Conval and 68 Hours of Hunger. Those are still up for consideration by the Select Board. I'd like to proceed with that. So essentially, we're looking at $15,000 of unfulfilled requests.
Well, I noticed the request for Meals on Wheels has dropped considerably, even though food prices seem to have escalated. Is there any reason they've less?
That's based on who they're actually, how many people they're actually providing service to in the community. So those are actual numbers.
I see that the River Center has dropped off the list. They didn't make a request.
No, they don't receive a request through this budget any longer because we are supporting their community outreach specialists directly through the police department's budget.
Okay. I remember, right?
Yep.
Any other questions? Anyone from the audience? Yes, Sandy.
I'm just a little confused. Aren't we talking about fiscal year 2023?
No, this is the 2022 request. So we hold on to these until we get to the end of fiscal year 2022 because it gives the selectmen a better appreciation of where we are in terms of the human services budget and how much there is for funds to be able to expend to support these other agencies. So this is the expenditures to come out of this year's budget. This isn't a budgeted amount for next year. These are the current year's requests.
So if the budget includes 20,000, does that mean the select board needs to decide among those things at the bottom?
That's the decision for the select board. They can either try to stick to the $20,000 budget, or they can overspend that particular line, but they would still be under budget, we would still be under budget in the human services budget overall, because we've not used, I think I'm trying to remember, Lily just gave me the number, we're at about $50,000 for direct aid. So there's plenty of money left in the direct aid budget that if the selectmen choose to put some of that money towards making these contributions, they can. But any additional funds that we put towards making contributions like this is funds that are not going to replenish the fund balance or help to offset the losses that we sustained earlier in the year.
There's some pretty extensive, additional asks by these groups. Is there any possibility that we can have them come and present to us their needs?
You could certainly ask them, yes.
And I will say that Ellen Avery, who's the executive director of CVTC, was actually very.
I'm right here.
She just walked
Right
up.
there.
She's right there.
The latecomer.
Look at that, welcome.
I was going to say that she was very interested in making a case for CVTC. So if the board would be willing to let her speak.
By all means. Sure.
By any chance, do you have my application?
I have it in my office.
But have they seen it?
They haven't. They see this memo, but if they wanted to look at the individual applications, then they absolutely could.
I mean, I feel like, I can present, but I feel like I took the time to fill out the application, and if you haven't seen it as to why I'm asking, I'm happy to do whatever's easiest for you all, but I feel like,
All these organizations have to provide an application every year in which we ask them to explain why their request is warranted. And it is pretty extensive. We ask for all their data from the year prior and ask, for any reasons why that amount should be increased. So they all took the time to submit these applications. And like I said, if the select board would like to review those individually, they absolutely could. There is quite a bit of information included in each of those.
But we don't make those part of the public packet because not only are they voluminous, but there is a lot of information in there that, while it is public information, we don't like to post it online.
I would like to say that I appreciate the work that you do in navigating this and then making the recommendations. And so if someone has gone to the effort to fill out those applications, and certainly there's a need, and certainly you vetted them, and I would trust your judgment on these numbers personally. I'll let the others.
I feel a need for due diligence, to be honest with you. I realize that you guys have scrutinized these things, but you don't have the authority to approve them necessarily. I mean, that falls on our shoulders. So, I'm not familiar with a couple of these organizations. And 68 hours of hunger, for instance, it's not a lot of money. So I would like to be able to familiarize myself with these organizations before I really make any kind of decision. It's not a lot of money, but it is over budget by almost $10,000.
Anything to add? Bill?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I don't need to review them. I trust them, and I know that they went to the truck. I mean, they're serving an immediate need. So if we can, our budget for this current year was $20,000 and it's underspent.
It's, well, the budget in total for aid, whether it's direct aid or aid through community support, is $100,000. 80,000 of that is allocated towards direct relief for people who come and make direct applications to the Human Services Department. that portion of the budget is currently underspent, and we believe that we're going to end the year with a credit balance essentially in that account.
Okay.
Of how much?
Probably about $30,000, more or less. But, you know, having said that, you can overspend this budget and spend into that line. Absolutely, there's no reason not to. Except that the more that you do that, the less money we're returning to the fund balance at the end of the year. That's really all it comes down to. So if you would like to do that, it's certainly supportive. It's just it just goes to reduce by about, you know, $10,000 the amount that we're gonna return to the fund balance at the end of the year.
Carol, you had a question?
Yes, Carol Nelson. So if the bottom set of numbers in the home, healthcare, hospice, and community service is actually 10,000, if I heard you right, Nicole.
Yes.
Then the total request is 24,639. So you're 4,639 over the allotted budget for this, is that correct?
Yes.
Anyone else? Well, I'd make a motion that we fund the requests.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
How do you, why,
Thank you.
$4,000 like splitting the baby?
Well, I mean, it's our neediest people.
And these, I mean, it's really, these are always tough decisions because these agencies always go to support people that the town would otherwise have to support through that direct aid human services budget. And they do a much better job of it, honestly, than we do. They're specialists in their fields, and we greatly appreciate all the work that they do. So it's really, that can't go unstated.
So what was the motion?
Motion was to
In
approve.
favor?
The
All of them, the slate.
ask.
Yes.
The new ask, not
Yes.
it.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It was your impassioned speech that put
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, when I have 7 pages of an application here, you know, with statistics and,
I still want to look at these.
well, here. I didn't realize that you wouldn't have them, so I'm happy to share, I'm very happy to share our, yeah.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you all very much, and thank you guys.
Yeah, and thank you for coming.
Well, my pleasure.
We don't have
I
representation,
had to hound
so I
them to
think
say,
it was.
when do I come? Well, thank you very much. Hi, Karen, how you on? And I know that the other organizations, you know, we all work together, and I know they'll appreciate it as well, so really I appreciate it very much. So, thank you all.
I
So in our packet, we had a statement from the Municipal Bond Bank, but there's nothing on that's related to the fire station?
Yes, it's related to the fire station funding. Yep.
Okay. So that's up next.
Yep, so this is the updated, with the new interest rate, the Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank is now anticipating 2.5% interest rate on a 5-year bond for $1.3 million. So this is that, and this is just like what you've seen before. It shows a breakdown of the period that, you know, the dates on which each of the payments would be owed, the amount of principal that would be outstanding as of that date, the amount of interest that we'd be getting charged, the total payment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then based on the town's valuation of $874,585,813, this is what the estimated tax rate increase would be. Now, this is, again, if that bond were to pass. As you know from the recent communication from New Hampshire DRA, our actual assessed value is a bit higher than that. We'd be looking at about $980 million of assessed valuation that we would be applying this over. So the actual impact on the tax rate is substantially less. As you know, that calculation just came in earlier in April.
100 million higher.
Yes, 100 million higher, which has a significant impact, which along with the bonds that we've paid off and the payments that we've recently made, has a significant positive impact on our ability to bond.
And we're asking a bond of 1.3 because we have offsetting 700,000 from the feds.
Correct, yes, through ARPA grant. Now, or we also have an application into the USDA Rural Development for $1 million of assistance. So hopefully one or the other will come through. And that would,
I thought the 7,000.
the 700,000 we have, the million would be better, essentially.
We'll take both.
This is, we were asked to, or Lily was asked to reach out to see what other funding opportunities were available to us. People's United Bank, who we already have a relationship with, of course, also provide us with some numbers. Their interest rate would be 3.4%, which is higher, a bit higher, not crazy. Over 5 years, it has about a $20,000 impact on the interest. So the total amount, it goes up about $20,000. The difference between People's United Bank and the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, though, is your ability to bond in increments. With the Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, you have to bond it all at once. With People's United Bank, we could potentially be looking at a line of credit or a loan, essentially something like a construction loan that we would take over time. So there might be, again, any of those things that you do differently usually has an impact on the interest rate. Your interest rates are typically higher. So, but we pay for that flexibility.
Will that continue now that M&T took over People's?
Yes, we believe so. We don't think there's
They're not
any
going to change policies? I mean, they changed our HSA, they dumped that, and
Oh, I didn't know
we
that.
have to, they sold it to an equity health company.
This was since last Thursday. that
Yeah,
they got that number.
we just got this number Friday morning. So far as we know, that, going forward, they're still going to be our bank. So far as we know, they haven't changed the terms of our other accounts. We have quite a lot of money with them, so I'm sure that they'd be interested in keeping our business.
If we take loans from People's in increments, will the interest rate change?
Yes, again, you pay for that flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that's why this assumed rate is higher than what you saw with the Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. It's a trade-off. So it's not something that the board needs to decide before town meeting. Obviously, the board does not yet have an authorization to go out and borrow money yet. But it's something for you to consider as that moves forward.
Another point of note that I confirmed with Lily earlier is that if we went with the New Hampshire Bond Bank, Municipal Bond Bank, we would have to take, if it's approved, the $1.3 million loan. But there's nothing saying that if we don't spend that amount, we can't use it to make annual payments with.
That's correct. And we've done that before with other projects. We've been delayed for one reason or another.
And when we take that money, do we put it in an interest-bearing account?
Yes, we can get a truly exciting 0.5% interest. Yes.
Really offset.
0.5% off of 3.4.
Is there one that gets 2.5%?
No. No, it would be great, though.
Not legally.
All right, well, that's.
Well, 2.5% is fine, 3% not as much.
I'm
Yeah.
not on this continent.
That starts to get complicated. IRS reporting on that is unpleasant.
Anyone in the audience have any questions? Yes, Al.
Hi. What part of the impact on taxes will be shown at the town meeting, if any, or would be available to be shown?
Well, this is
Was there an
available.
intention to, was there
Yeah.
intent to show them?
So, I'm sorry, this isn't working like I'd hoped. This final column here, this is included in tonight's selectmen's packet, this whole document, so you can certainly go to see that. And as you can see, there's very little difference between the two, so, you're looking at 4 cents, 33 cents, 32 cents, 32 cents, 31 cents, 30 cents, depending on the year. And this is, again, at the 2021 assessed valuation, not the 2022 assessed valuation. So already, we're looking at less of a tax rate impact. But you can see that there is actually very little difference. It's a penny different per year, depending on which funding scenario you look at. So those will be available. They're available right now on our website if you draw down tonight's selectmen's packet. And definitely will be part of the conversation next week.
That's what I meant.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Sam?
That comparison with People's seems it's based on trying to make it just like the bond, where you would take 1.3 million up front. But conceivably, you might not need any of that money, and if you went with People's Bank, you wouldn't incur any interest expense,
Yep.
right?
There's also another scenario that we've discussed internally, but we haven't discussed publicly, but there's an option for the select board to not take a bond immediately, instead to spend out of the $700,000 or the $1 million grant, and then take a bond at a later time. Use that authorization at a later time. But the reason not to do that right away is if you wish to lock in that 2.5% interest rate. And so that's really the reason why we're talking about bonding sooner than later, is to get that lower interest rate. We had been hoping to get in at the 1.26% interest rate that they were getting back in at their January sale, but that interest rate's already gone.
Sandy's right, that's an excellent point, though.
Yeah.
We don't have to take out the full 1.3, or anywhere near it. Then the interest, in fact, would still be a lot less than 5 years of definite interest.
So I think what you just said, Nicole, is that, well, let me rephrase it. I was under the understanding that we could only apply for a bond at this time of year. And I think what you're saying is that's not necessarily true. We could apply for a bond at a later date, but the interest rate might be different.
Yes, they have multiple bond sales every year. They've done a January bond sale. This is their anticipated July bond sale interest rate. They'll probably do they'll sometimes do a fall bond sale, not always, but they always do at least 2 a year.
So our next chance might not be till January.
Ms. Carroll.
Is the Fed meeting tomorrow? Is that when the Fed is meeting to raise the interest rates? Anybody know?
God, I hope not.
Yeah,
It's
it's
this
coming
week.
right up. I'm not sure what
This
date.
week, yeah. I think it is tomorrow.
I thought it was tomorrow, so let's just assume that they're going to, which I think is a pretty good chance. How does that affect the municipal bond bank interest rate, and how quickly would that be affected?
That, I believe that's why they're going with the 2.5% interest rate. I believe that's what they think the Fed's going to do. And they believe that's where we'll end up with municipal bonds. But that's really their expertise, their specialty. So I don't question these numbers when they hand them to us, since this is.
But do you
really
know how
what they do.
quickly the bond bank is affected by higher interest rates from the Fed? Is it immediate?
I think it's at their next sale. That's when those things have a tendency to shake out, is at their next sale, because the buyers are looking for a higher rate of interest for their investments.
Thank you.
Yes.
Could the amount of the bond or line of credit, whatever it is, be further reduced by trust funds that are available for this project?
It really depends. Yes. Yeah, it depends on whether or not the town is successful in getting the USDA RD grant. The USDA RD grants require that funds, at least 50% of the funds of whatever project they're being applied to, comes from another source, not federally funded. So, for instance, you would be able to use taxpayer dollars. You would be able to use user fees to meet that 50% threshold. You would be able to use trust funds so long as the origination source of those trust fund dollars does not come from federal money. So, for instance, the expendable trust fund that we're talking about, the $700,000.
I'm not talking about that.
Right.
I'm talking about town trust fund.
Absolutely. If there are town trust funds available that could be put to that purpose, then yes, they could be used.
And I'm asking, are there any available, and if so, how much?
There are, and it's about $130,000 in total from multiple sources that could be put to this. Some of them are dedicated to fire ambulance, some of them are for general purpose, but that's it.
So conceivably, this could be reduced to 1.2 instead of 1.3.
If the selectmen chose to do so, yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
But those trust funds are targeted at other programs, right?
Some of them are targeted specifically at fire and ambulance, the Helen Brown funds, for instance. Other funds are more for general purposes. They're not targeted at anything in particular, but they're slow growth funds. Their principal amounts are very small, and so the income takes a very long time to build back up again. So once they're used, you can essentially, look at really, 10 years before you'll have even a little bit of money in there to use again.
And are these trust funds that any one of us could do anything? Or
Well,
were they
these
established?
were established by wills. So they're all established individually. But there are some general purpose funds that people could donate to if they wanted. And of course, people are always welcome to donate directly to the project.
What else?
Or through the sale of t-shirts, right?
Yeah.
I saw a total of all the trust funds, which means they're not touchable or reachable, but it's like $14 million or something like that. It's a high number.
Yes.
Of all the town's trust funds. Am I correct?
Many of them are, the principal balance of many of them are untouchable. The vast majority is untouchable. They're meant to continue to be income generating funds for the town's benefit in perpetuity. And then some of them have, well, most of them have restrictions on what the uses are. So the vast majority of the funds that we have are actually cemetery funds. We've got many, I'm trying to remember how many, it's probably close to 100 at any rate, cemetery funds. Some of them can be used for maintenance of the cemetery in general. Others are very specific towards maintenance of a particular plot or just buying flowers for a particular plot. So they can be very, very targeted, very, very directed. It really depends on how the funds were established in the first place. It's actually one of the projects Lily's working on right now is going through and cataloging all of them, going through our old records to make sure that the purposes that each of those funds is being put to is appropriate.
Keep them coming, these are good questions. Well, that's it. All right, more progress. Now we know a little bit more than we did before. Great, thank you. All right, Bob, you're in the hot seat now. You still have time to back out, but I don't think you will. I sat in a couple Conservation Commission meetings with Bob. Do you want to just say why you'd want to join the Conservation Commission?
Well, I've always been interested in it. My cousin, Debbie Kaiser, was on the Conservation Commission. And I met Francie 13 or 14 years ago, well before we built the house. She, I think, knows a great deal about nature in this environment. And I've also been interested in the Fremont property. As a co-steward, I walked around the boundaries and this year, and I'm just interested in the subject matter in general.
And of course, you've seen how smoothly and efficient those meetings are run, right? I'm always impressed. So I make a motion that we add Bob to the Conservation Commission roster.
I'll second as his neighbor.
All those in favor? Aye. Francie, you didn't have to say anything. Look at that.
Well,
You said
there it all is.
Send a letter.
The photo, we need the photo
The
here.
photo. You know, Bob, Debbie Kaiser was also very instrumental in the Heritage Commission, and there's probably an opening on that one too, if you find yourself, enjoying.
Following in her footsteps.
Yeah, ton.
This is their wonderful land that they put a conservation easement on,
Nice.
and some years back. Ed Hinault on the right there, our very sorely missed chair of the Open Space Committee. And a nice celebratory, I think it was hunting season, you might guess by the clothes.
What's
So,
that body of water behind you?
That is No Name Brook. That's actually behind an old stone culvert that the beavers have now built. A very a big lodge across, and unfortunately it's had the effect of raising the water level to kill many of the of the red maples around the
Oh, right.
edge. But it's basically a little pond.
Can you get to it from the Fremont property?
You can get to it by crossing our land, and you can also get to it by walking down Old Town Farm Road,
Oh,
past the end of the asphalt. There's a class 6 road that goes right down there. And apparently, this was at one point, perhaps 60 or 70 years ago, was mowed. I think actually your father told us that it was originally, the water level was low enough that they could mow it for hay. Maybe it was 100 years ago, a long time ago.
It's also quite a bit lower than this picture right now, because after
Yeah.
last summer, a big portion of that beaver dam washed out.
It washed up in the July flood.
It's amazing how much it's changed over, like, just in my lifetime. You used to be able to drive across that.
Yes,
Really?
that's right.
Now it's, yeah, I mean, you used to be able to drive a car, or truck, or tractor right across it.
It's difficult now to walk across.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure is.
So is that the Beaver's plan, to knock the red maples down so then they can use them for lodging? And I mean, that's why they make a dam, right, to get the water swelled out around.
You think
The
they're that
beavers.
smart?
I think their plan is a lot more sinister.
Well,
There are
That's not
at least 3 beaver lodges on No Name Brook, on this pond, body of water. And we see a lot of beaver chew when we walk around it. So I think the beavers are quite active.
we looking at a future Bob Strong body of water, just naming it since it's a no-name body? That you're
Well,
saying?
we thought that it might be named for one of the original settlers of there. But we have to talk to Bill Taylor and his brother.
No,
Oh, it's on your way.
no, it's not him, sir, on his.
Oh, very good. Thank you for
welcome aboard, Bob.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Speaking of hydropower, we will have
You
electric
need
charging
to officially
stations.
appoint him then?
We made the motion
Mhm.
and
we
seconded
voted it.
and voted?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, it
well,
was
we did.
unanimous.
Thanks for.
It was unanimous.
I already forgot. Here we go, charging stations. They're in.
Yeah, they became operational as of April the 1st, or earlier, I'm not exactly sure when.
It was that first week of April at any rate.
But as celebration, the Peterborough Renewable Energy Task Force has proposed to have a celebration this first Friday, beginning at 5 p.m. We have, I think, 8 different electric vehicles that will be on display. Some of them you can take a quick ride in if you'd like, which is kind of fun. I think if you've never driven an electric vehicle, I think you would find the experience really quite amazing and fun.
So here's a little bit of what's
Oh, there you go.
planned.
Dory Drockman in town here has put this together
Teslas.
in collaboration with.
Will Elon Musk be here?
Sorry?
Will Elon Musk be here?
We've invited him. He's busy buying something. I'm not sure what it was.
Ron, you had a question,
If I may, if we can go back to the question of the bond, we neglected to talk about what is the process going to be to changing the dollar amount in the warrant article, and will that be announced how far ahead of time? What is the plan for that?
That happens during open session. So you can amend the article during open session.
Is that the plan, that someone will come forward and amend the article down to the lower amount?
Yes.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Well, you, the select board,
Amend the
said.
bond amount.
Bond,
right.
We've agreed that we're amending, but we won't bond.
But related to that is, will the voters be apprised that that is likely to happen ahead of time?
Made the press release this
Yeah.
last week.
There was a press release about it.
Oh, there was? In the paper?
It was in last Thursday?
Yeah.
The one that Bill wrote.
Well, Bill wrote, yeah, now it's on the town website.
It's on the town's website, it's on Facebook page.
Yeah, we sent
Well,
out.
We can't
Since
officially
select
commit to
board
it
mailing
until
list.
town meeting.
So the plan is still to have a, have a up to $2 million bond. but
Up to $2 million
$2 million
project.
appropriation,
Right, the appropriation.
but only up to $1.3 million bonds. Carol?
But on that same note, we just had a discussion about the benefits of using People's Bank.
Right.
Will that be discussed?
It should be part of the discussion that night.
Yeah.
It can be, you can certainly discuss it, but, I mean, no decision on that gets made until after the appropriation moves forward, and then the selectmen will decide which bank to go through, which institution, what the parameters will be of that particular loan. what have you.
So.
But yes,
that's what I'm
Carol, we
asking.
should, we will talk about that option
You, the select board.
You should.
at town meeting.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I
it's pretty
mean.
important to
Yeah,
make that an option.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure we'll have several questions regarding. Thanks, good question. It wasn't too late. Anything else about the electric vehicles business?
Well, we do encourage you to come on down and visit. We'll be in the Riverwalk parking lot, of course, because that's where the 4 chargers are. But then there will be these electric vehicles on display if you want to kick the tires.
Is there a time limit on how long you can test drive the? I would prefer to drive it to another charging station.
For the airport.
Yeah, right.
All right, so there's that. Would anybody like to make a motion regarding the minutes from April 15th?
They're actually April 19th.
19th. My
Yeah,
mistake.
No.
19th.
On the agenda, it should have said April 19th.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Well, hold on, I do have a question though. In the minutes, there is a request for a statement from our town attorney regarding the planning board amendment and his actions. Has that been made? Has that request been made?
The request has been made. He's been pretty busy. He was at the ZBA meeting last night. There's been a bit of activity around the Rod and Gun Club case. So we're still, he's been a little sidetracked, which is what I'm trying to say.
But the request is there and then...
The request is there, and as soon as, yeah.
And it's a public statement that he's going to make?
Yes.
Great.
He'll put together something that publicly about it.
Okay.
But yeah, he and I had a bit of a conversation about it last week.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
I think Carol has
Well,
something.
just on that
Carol.
note, the letter has to deal with something that's happening at town meeting. So it would be really nice to have the response from him before the ballot vote.
I will remind him again, yes.
Or we could just ask him to come.
Well, he will be at town meeting.
He will be.
Is that
Yeah.
It's too late, it's
But
the
that's too
ballot
late, it's
vote.
on the ballot.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Good point, thank you.
I will remind him.
That's coming right up, isn't it? That's next week, all that.
I do have my notes from the conversation with him, which I can certainly go through with you, just to make sure that gets done in advance of town meeting, if you like.
Right now.
Okay.
Will you-
No, I really have
Oh,
them.
sure, while we're on the air,
Yeah.
and can we clarify the question? I was absent, I read the minutes, but I
Yeah.
don't have.
Well, let me just pull it up real quick, but the question was about the timeline. How was the timeline for that public hearing on the affordable housing amendment established, and what makes it correct? And just let me pull that up real quick.
Yeah, there was a question about the legality at which it was presented. So you made the statement that it's totally legal and...
Yep.
in question, so we want him to clarify.
Give basic reasons for why he said it was okay.
Okay. The proposed zoning amendment was noticed for public hearing on Thursday, March 17th. The planning board held the public hearing on the proposed zoning amendment on March 30th. A draft of the zoning ballot was posted on March 21st with the balance of the provisional warrant and MS 636 pursuant to the town's charter. The proposed zoning amendment was not substantively changed, and so a second public hearing was not required. The final zoning ballot was submitted to the town clerk after the conclusion of the public hearing on March 30th pursuant to RSA 675:3, which required that it be submitted before April 5th, which is 5 weeks before the second Tuesday in May. The planning board is an elected body. The select board had no role in the zoning amendment process outside of the one member who sits on both boards. Section 5, paragraph 4 of Peterborough's charter reads, quote, "For zoning articles, charter amendments, and other subjects required by general law to be placed on the official ballot, the general law requirements for the public hearings and posting notice thereof shall apply, and dates shall be calculated from the second Tuesday in May," end quote. Section 5, paragraph 7 of Peterborough's charter reads, quote, "A single warrant shall be prepared and posted for the election/official ballot session and the final open session to include the provisions for elections, the articles which are prescribed by statute to be on the official ballot, the articles of the official ballot in the final form determined by the first session, and the articles to be considered at the open session following the official ballot session," end quote. The charter does not provide any body with any additional powers over the zoning amendment process, and that was pretty much it. It appears that it was within the planning board's powers to consider and propose the zoning amendment when and how it did.
And I was there. The vote ended affirmative 4-3 for, affirmative 3 nays. Carol?
Nicole, can you go back to your notes and say what the last day was for you gave an April 5th date?
Yeah, last day was April 5th this year.
For
And
what?
that's pursuant to the last day for the submission of the zoning amendments to the town clerk. And that's pursuant to RSA 675:3.
Yep, that last date is March 28th.
Not according to, the date was 5 weeks before the second Tuesday of May, which is April 5th.
The New Hampshire Office of Planning and Development has a March 28th date.
That was his
Put it out there.
interpretation. This is what he explained to me was his interpretation.
I
He counted
understand.
back 5 weeks from the second Tuesday of May.
I understand, and I'm just saying that the RSA that's quoted from the New Hampshire Office of Planning and Development, also supported by the New Hampshire Municipal Association, clearly says March 28th. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
There's a differentiation, but
There's a different
between the two.
interpretation.
Yes, exactly. And that was his interpretation, so
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I'm wondering how they arrived at March 28th.
They read the RSAs. They do that every year. They come out with a specific calendar
That's
for
5
SB2
weeks.
May town meeting. I can send you the document.
Okay.
That was, I think it's a difference of interpretation between the attorneys. That's all I can say. I don't know why they come up with different days, but that's the date that John came up with.
I voted negative on that because of the fear of, there was talk of lawsuits from some members of the public, and I felt it was not in my responsibility as a select board member to take the chance on yet another lawsuit for the town. However, I would have voted affirmatively had I been cleared on our attorney's interpretation of that date. So, that's how I see it. Any further discussion? One more item, Congresswoman Custer was here today. I missed it, I couldn't make it, but who wants to report on that meeting, gathering?
I can. She was here to, well, we were talking about the new 101 bridge and how there's a Peterborough water main that previously ran underneath the riverbed and up through the Shell station, or what do you call it?
Yep, that's exactly correct.
The Shell station, and at some point there was a break in that water main and it was so deep that they deemed it unrepairable. And it was going to be on the ratepayers of Peterborough to pay just under $300,000 to replace that water main, have it suspended from this new bridge. And through a series of grant applications, they were successful, and Annie Custer's office delivered the money to pay for that.
This is out of last fiscal year's congressionally directed spending. Same kind of program that we're applying to now through Senator Shaheen's office. Representative Custer's office actually reached out to us and said, hey folks, this is brand new, it's not getting a lot of airplay, but why don't you apply to this if you have a shovel-ready project? And so we went through what we had, and of course, one of the projects that would have the greatest impact not only on Peterborough's water ratepayers, but also has a huge regional impact because of New Hampshire Ball Bearing and Microspect and Rivermead and all the people who are employed at all of those businesses. So what this does is it allows us to put in that water main, so we have that redundant water service. It will prevent future water main breaks, hopefully from shutting down water service to all of those businesses and residents in the southern part of Peterborough. And it, again, has a really big regional impact on us. So Custer's office was very successful in getting us funding for it. The ratepayers will not pay a penny towards it now. And the project is moving forward at a pretty quick pace. We expect it to be online by the end of summer.
That was the headline. We did talk about a number of different other topics.
That's right.
In particular, ongoing funding for things like the fire station.
Great.
And she's pretty certain that she'll keep her house seat. So next year at this time when we're talking, she'll still be there.
Chris Pappas may have to move though.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to, she was pretty convinced that that wouldn't change. But the districting as it currently exists out of the Republicans' hands brings Chris Pappas and Annie Custer into the same district and frees up. Anyway.
So it was good. We touched on some affordable or whatever housing projects, and she's going to put us in touch with somebody that's big into developing
Working
that
on
type
the
of thing.
Concord, yeah, working on a Concord project that's going very well.
And what was it? What was another one? Littleton or somewhere? Or Lebanon?
Claremont has a big project as well.
Yeah. So she was going to put us in touch with that. We talked about broadband and how we've accomplished that in Peterborough.
Sustainability funding too.
Yeah. It was good. There was a lot of nice things said.
There's another item in our packet from 53rd Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week Proclamation. Do we have somebody here to present that before we sign it or discuss it?
I don't know anything about that actually. I didn't see that get subbed in.
I think we'll wait on that then.
She must have.
Yes, Carol.
Were you in the meeting with Annie Custer?
I missed it. I was working today.
So the information that she shared with you about the affordable housing projects in Concord or Littleton or wherever they are you going to share that information with the Affordable Housing Committee?
Once we've received it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we're hoping to line this person, this contact that she had up with them.
Okay. Just because we talked about that at the most recent meeting, so that would be really helpful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's an issue that everyone is dealing with right now across the state, so definitely anyone who's got successful projects, it'd be great to learn how they got their projects to be so successful. And that's really the goal of any interaction.
She's very helpful and very down-to-earth person.
The contact is she thinks is a member of Peterborough.
Peterborough.
Yeah, either a current or former
thought so.
resident. Yeah, she thought so.
She wasn't
She'd
100%
check in.
on that.
She'll find out. We'll find out.
All right, anything else to add before we run home?
And have spaghetti dinner.
Is that what we're having tonight?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Second.
Thank you. Thanks everyone, great questions. Learned a little bit.